Welcome back to the Fail Breakdown channel, everyone. It is Monday, the 26th of January, and today Mayank and I are going to be discussing the fail breakdown of 6904 that happened off the Sunday Open, highlighting the importance of trading that session and including that in your weekly schedule. If you're going to trade any evening session, make it the Sunday evening, especially when we get a gap down, and that's exactly what we got. So before getting into the charts, just wanted to highlight that we're just trying to relay the method taught by Adam Mancini through his newsletter via Substack and on X. So check him out. Everything we're relaying to you has come from him. He's an excellent teacher. His levels are absolute dynamite, and I would highly recommend you subscribing if you're not already. With that, let's get into the charts.
Good.
Okay, guys, I've got the charts pulled up here. I've got the 4 hour on the left, and I've dropped down to a real low time frame on the right hand side just so we can see a little bit more detail in hindsight. So this is a 1 minute, and you kind of had to drop down to this because everything was happening real fast. But even here, you can't really appreciate the swings all that much. So obviously we gap down, open at 6904, interestingly, which is the major level we're talking about. And just real quick, the reason it's a significant low, if we drop down to, actually you can't really see it on the 1 hour chart. I think I've got to drop down to a 30-minute. Can you even see it on this? Yeah, so Wednesday afternoon, right before the close, we put a low at 6904, dipping in from about 40 points above 6944, bounced to 6904, which was actually a high from the morning session. So this goes back to that beautiful 6822 fail breakdown that we had on Wednesday and all the structure it created there. So that's kind of the definition of the significant low. But not only that, though, it was also had a great confluence, being the support for the bull flag that we've been kind of playing around in and beneath and back in again since kind of the second week in January, really. So at least as far as I've got it, if we connect the lows from Wednesday the 7th and Wednesday the 14th, that put the support from the bull flag right at 6904. So that made it, very nice level to be trading the failed breakdown of. But even if you didn't have that, you just follow Adam's plans. He'd identified that as a level to trade a failed breakdown of. Look for a test of 90 to 93 and then a recovery of the 04 level, and that's pretty much what we got. Obviously, we dipped a little bit lower on the extreme volatility. So yeah, let's take a little look at the execution. I'm actually going to switch over to the range chart so that we can see kind of the swings up and down a bit more clearly. So yeah, open at 04, dip straight down to about 79, pop back up to 90, dip back down to 79 again. This is all within the first 30 seconds. And by the time we get to the first minute, we're just recovering the 68.90, which was a level that Adam had tweeted as kind of a major support level. And some in the group actually traded that level as well. So I'm just drawing a box around that. That's all the first minute. And for me, the volatility there is just too extreme for me to do anything with. So it's like sit back, let it settle down, and it started to settle down pretty quickly from that point. What was your thought process as we got into the open here? You just staying calm, keeping the heart rate down, not doing anything? How are you processing this?
Yeah, so I would say, just to kind of walk through kind of my thought process. So first thing, right, I kind of expect that we have a gap down. I see the weekend kind of projections show a bit of a gap down, 30 points. So I'm kind of, seeing that we're most likely gonna open around 6904. And so I'm watching that failed breakdown. At the open, it's a little bit more surprising. We kind of actually gapped down way lower than that. So it's a bit lower than I anticipated. Down to 68.79. So at that point, I'm still, I have my trade plan. I'm looking through, what are potential areas I want to engage in. For me, it's still 69.04 at that point, right? There's really nothing else before that I'm too interested in. So I'm just watching 69.04 and watching to see if we get there. And we eventually do 15, 20 minutes in. We recover 69.04. So now at that point, a couple things I'm noting. For one, I'm noting the fact that we're up 20 points direct off the lows. So you have to be a little bit cautionary about entering, especially with NAP. That's kind of not the best entry to take when you're up 20 points off the lows. You prefer to see some sort of sell reaction first to get in. It's much safer. And then at that point, I'm also now marking 68.79, which is our gap down low. So at that point, I'm either watching, okay, 69.04 or 68.79, and let's see what we get. And so that's kind of my thought process as we start, nearing 69.04. And at that point, I'm just starting to watch for some sort of acceptance.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we got. But that's a great point on the always have those if then statements in your mind. So right, this was right when we're kind of around the lifting off 90 up to the double O. You're still thinking, hey, we could collapse down here, and then I'll be watching for a failed breakdown of the 79 level. Or if we push up, then I'll hope for a bit more of a sell reaction as we come through oh 04 and look to get long there. So yeah, always having those if thens in your mind, kind of playing them out ahead of time, so you're ready to execute and react when they do trigger.
Yeah. So with this one, right, with the acceptance, and this is kind of what I saw. You let me know if you saw something different. But essentially, by 620, we started going pretty direct, right, above oh 04. And we actually started, kind of just peaking a point or so above that danger zone. So at that point, my thinking is, okay, I'm either watching for us to hold above essentially oh 09, oh 10-ish for a couple of minutes, or I'm looking for some sort of a sell reaction here. Thankfully, about 624-ish or so, we kind of sold back down under oh 04. We actually undercut it to oh 01 or so. And then a couple minutes later, 625, 626, we start kind of pushing right above it. So that acceptance to me happened within essentially a 5 minute time span, 620 to 625. It was, fairly quick given, especially the volatility and how much we were off the lows. But that was kind of that 5 minute acceptance period of type two that I saw and felt comfortable to take the entry by 626 or so. We also, to be fair, we also kind of did another round of type 2 acceptance if you wanted to be even a bit more patient or waited out, where we again dipped back under 69.04 by 645 and then reclaimed oh 04 once again and kind of put in another, a little bit of a longer form of type 2 because that one took about 10, 15 minutes or so. So I don't know if that was some entry that you also took or you just took the earlier one. I took the earlier one. It was a little faster, but definitely, the longer drawn out type 2 acceptance also did occur after.
Yeah, I got in on the first one, and I got a quick profit take up there, right at 1075, and then actually added a little bit back in a different account when we dipped under and lifted again. Kind of one of those scenarios where I think you've mentioned it in the past, where give it a bit more time and you actually become more confident in the trade, even though it might have dipped a little bit. But just seeing kind of more mature acceptance develop there. So yeah, I took a couple of different entries at that level in different accounts. But yeah, it was fairly straightforward. I was really, having lifted from 90 straight up through oh 04 with 80 being the low. I was really dreading it turning into a non-acceptance protocol situation, and thankfully we got that dip, exactly what we're looking for. And not only that, it didn't just dip to the level; it dipped beneath the level. To what did it go down to? About 901, 902, something like that. So then gives you a very clear entry point, and I got in I think 475 as we pushed back up through. Um,
Yeah, I know I've gotten a few questions from a few folks asking about, stops in scenarios like this, when you have just these big deep sweeps in terms of like, what are your real options in terms of stops. It's a bit tricky here because there isn't really a big, you know, even like structure above 68.79 at that point to really keep your stop. So, I would say, in my opinion, your best thinking here is just, it's going to be a 25-point stop or so. So just size down accordingly, and give the trade some space to work. And then if we do end up putting in a nice higher low after your entry, you can then, trail up your stop to that. But I think by the time me and you entered, there really was nowhere to have the stop. I don't know if you placed it somewhere like arbitrarily somewhere else, but I just had to, at that point, just, size accordingly and just have it under 79. Um,
yeah, I did do a little bit differently. I had mine under the 90 level by a few points. But so yeah, it was somewhat of an arbitrary stop, but 90 was support, the next level down. So yeah, the 25-point stop on that would have been pretty brutal. 25 plus a little bit of margin if you're going a couple of points beneath 79. I'd size down a bit to accommodate that, but even still, putting it under 90 was still a fairly substantial stop for me. It was 17, 18
yeah,
points or
I
something
took
like
this one
that.
half size to accommodate for the stop.
Hmm.
If you took the second round, for anyone that took the second round of type 2 acceptance that took a little longer, that one you could have had your stop under that. A little bit at that point, we started developing a little bit of, again, this is like you have to kind of zoom in a little bit, but we started developing a little bit of structure under 6901, 6902-ish area.
Hmm.
So at that point, if you wanted to just to kind of keep it there, that was an option. I later did move my 25% up there just so, my could protect my trade from going red. So I did protect there until we eventually got the second trim.
Hmm.
And then I think the other thing to note too is, if you for whatever reason didn't like the 6904 or just, weren't looking for that, the 6911 also did present itself. We had, three essentially rejections: 620, 630, and then again at 650 from there. So once it kind of took off after 655-ish or so, there was really nice acceptance to take that there.
Yeah, very clean entry on that one. I'm just drawing on the charts. I mean, if you got in a couple of points above 11, you barely suffered any drawdown on that at all, even if you didn't take your trim at, say, 16. It came back down, bounced off 11 perfectly, and gone. It just goes to show, if you follow the system, even if you're 30 points off the low in an evening session, you can still just trade the levels that Adams identified, follow the rules of acceptance and entry, and a lot of the time you'll be okay. That said,
Yeah.
risk and reward is pretty bad up there. So,
Yeah, that's
uh,
the thing. That's why I preferred the O 04, but the 11 definitely did have acceptance. So it's not like it's a bad trade option by any means, just because of how much acceptance. I mean, three rejections at that spot clearly
mm,
shows, some nice acceptance going on if sellers can't really bring it down. And then, from there, I think we've now just seen the power of a failed breakdown, as now we're up essentially almost 90 straight points off of the failed breakdown, and you're just able to sit back and the runner enjoy. And I think that, I think a day like today, especially last night, in my opinion, actually shows the real power of trading the failed breakdown, is when you can get these really high quality entries, with pretty clean acceptance, and then just able to hold a runner for these gigantic moves, and just not have to worry now about being in position for it, how to trade this. Because if you had woken up today, for example, not having taken anything last night, you're kind of just left out. You're kind of just locked out of this rally, right? There's not really many. I mean, there really hasn't been any dip or anything really, even any trap to kind of get in on this, so it kind of becomes a lockout rally. So, I think days like this really show the power of the failed breakdown is just, getting in essentially, near the lows and then just being able to kind of hold it stress free and just kind of ride a runner and, go do other things.
Yeah, there was nothing today that that you could find in here really, not following Adam's system anyway. I'm sure there's other types of trades. There was even the 69-64 kind of add-on strength. I mean, you can't see any sort of a dip on the 15 minute. Let's just drop down the time frames. Okay, yeah, maybe there was a little bit on a 3 minute, kind of touch 64. Did it dip down to 52 right at the open? Man, I thought I was watching that, but I didn't remember seeing that. That happened pretty quick. So yeah, maybe you could have taken the 64 add-on strength trade. But yeah, it doesn't fill you with a great amount of confidence taking something like that. Coming up to bull flag resistance here now, so right around the 7,000 handle. So we'll see if we get a bit of a sell on this one or not.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that too, just if you zoom out a little bit to kind of the bigger structure here, just a very, very nice, now textbook liquidity sweep there of the flag, right? Yesterday we essentially just wicked right below the flag
Mm-hmm.
by almost 20 points and then just reclaimed that. So that wick now looks really, really vicious. And it seems like that was the kind of power we needed to get back to the top of the structure, and we've done it, pretty quickly, essentially in one session,
Yeah,
just sweeping that and getting back. And sometimes, I think those are the most powerful failed breakdowns is when you get these massive failed breakdowns of these structures, right? Where, price essentially is just floating in a structure. It's not really able to break out or break down from it. And then, you're able to eventually just put in one big textbook liquidity sweep off of it, and then eventually just that's what gives it that final kind of push to kind of break out. So
yeah, we'd had that big consolidation, and we kind of the latter half of last week. Um, and that was what was that? That was Adam's heading for his newsletter, wasn't it? Like a move is coming, which way? And this is often the case. It starts in one direction and then rips all the way back through the other direction. So yeah, we were just playing in that playground from 26 to 64 for the last few days. Broke it down, wicked under the bull flag, and then straight back from bull flag support right up to bull flag resistance in a session. So very nice. Okay, well, nothing more to add, I don't think, on that one. I'm gonna maybe just tack on kind of the live replay of it. I didn't record it in real time, but I'll replay it and tack it on so you kind of see how quickly the first minute was moving, and then watch as the price action calmed down, and then we eventually got the entry. What was it? 20 minutes, half an hour after the open.
already sounds good.
Okay, with that, we will catch you guys in the Discord and just waiting now for the next sale to happen. Not much to do here. So, yeah, thanks everyone. Catch you next time. Okay, this is in replay mode, not a live execution this time. I didn't have it set up for Sunday evening, but did just wanted to play through it in 1-to-1 range chart, 20 range on the left, 15 minute on the right, just so you can get a sense of how quickly this was moving off the open. So here we go. All right, so gap down, and this is 1-to-1. This is not 10x or anything, but you see how quickly it opened at 04. We're 10 seconds after the open, and we've dropped from 04 to 80. And then work our way back up here to I think 96, 98, the double O. But you can see how wild the price action is. As far as I'm concerned, this is completely untradeable. So just for me, it's just sit back, let things calm down, and wait for an area of interest. We are putting in a couple of lows here right around the 79, so this is kind of the formation of a potential level beneath to trade. So that's the first minute. You can see the wild whipsaw we've been having. 25 points down, 20 points back up, 20 points down, and then working our way back up. Adam tweeted out, a rare Sunday evening tweet from Adam, talking about 68.90 as support. And I think most of his messaging actually to the upside was look for the 69.11 level to reclaim. That said, we've already discussed why we thought 69.04 was a valid failed breakdown level, and that was also part of the newsletter. It'll be interesting tonight to see where he actually entered. Doubt he entered at 90, but it's a possibility. Some did in the Discord. But curious if it's 90, 04, or 11 where he decided to enter. So this is just a couple of minutes after the open here now, and price movement starting to settle down a little bit, but still pretty erratic. It's not like huge volume coming in, but just a thin order book, so price is moving around pretty erratically. After about 3 or 4 minutes, it starts to steady itself and kind of holds above 90. Gets a little bit stuck there for a few minutes before making a nice, more controlled climb back up to 04. So I will speed it up a little bit here, because I can't remember my exact entry time, but it was 20 minutes, a half an hour after the open, something like that. So now I'm running at 4 times speed. Can start to see a nice wick formation on the 15 minute. Obviously we're only 5 minutes into the session, so you can't read too much into that at this point. It can easily collapse beneath. But like my uncle was saying, here now is the moment you can start to think about your if-then statements. Now price is starting to settle down. If we start moving to the downside, look for a failed breakdown of these lows here at the 80 level. Or if we hold this 90 here and push on up, maybe we can get some type 1 acceptance and push on up through 04 for an entry. Or what we actually got was kind of type 2 with that nice push up through, dip beneath, and then long entry as we reclaim it the second time. So they're still running at 4 times speed. It's right about 8 minutes past 6 Eastern time. Gonna speed it up a little bit here, probably 10x, until we get up to the 04, and then I'll slow it back down around 04. Maybe let's go 20 times. So now we just start lifting steadily. You can see the volume has died off. Price action just a bit more controlled now, a little less erratic. So as we poke through here, we get a little bit of a dip off the 04. Not really much to, we'll slow it right down. Not really much to trade type 1 acceptance, but there was a small dip there. And then we suddenly push through, so now it's a case of, are we going to hold above 09 for a couple of minutes? It's right at 622, coming to 623. But we're already kind of dipping back down into the danger zone at this point, so we kind of poked up above it momentarily. We just got to 69.10. Didn't quite reach the next level up at 69.11, which is another important level. So here we're not above the danger zone. So we were really waiting to see if we can get some solid type 2 acceptance here, and ideally we want to see that dip beneath the 04 level, but often it will just come back to 04 and then start lifting. Those can be kind of tricky, judging those entries. You could almost argue it's happened here kind of like that, but you just got to be patient, especially with this kind of move up. We've come up 25 points from the low, so definitely want to give it some time up in this region to develop. Still rolling a 1 times speed here. Maybe go a little bit faster. Let's go 2 times. But now this is exactly what we're looking for. So we've come back to the level. So are we going to see some lifting right here, or are we going to break below? And ideally, breaking below for me makes the entry much clearer. Especially now we've dipped 2-3 points beneath. Sellers have given it a little bit of attempt to fail beneath the level. Just kind of zooming in so you can actually see the delta plot at the bottom here. A couple of points to note. There was pretty high volume here as we were holding above 90, and actually delta has been definitely much more on the positive side, so that was kind of the entry point there as we lifted back up through. I should have watched and been paying a bit more attention to that instead of talking about other things. What time is it here? 5:26. Let me just rewind a couple of minutes and go and see. Let's go back to 5:24. Is that 5:24? I don't think this chart's updated. Okay. Back at 5:24. Give a sec for the delta to come in. Okay, rolling again here now, 2 times speed. I guess just for fun we can put an order in. So yeah, now we're just looking to see if it's going to lift. Which it is. A couple of points above the level. Take an entry. Pretty straightforward. Look to get out a little bit beneath the 11 level. This is where you see that little attempt from sellers to drive it lower. Not much happening. Lifting back up through the level. Do get a second entry here as well. So I can fast forward and just kind of show that one as well, which is probably a better entry really. Hindsight's 20/20, of course. Okay, bump the speed up here 10 times. And this is where we're starting to get the acceptance develop of the 11 level. So we've had the first test of it, dip 10 points coming up, and then we're going to dip a few more than 10 points, and then we're going to come up and go. So first target there, hit. So yeah, if you didn't trade 90, I totally understand. If we didn't trade 04, at this point, are going to get another option. Questionable whether this is considered kind of type 1 acceptance of the 04 level. It's maybe a little bit low coming up to this century mark here. In the past, 4 points is probably about the limit of whether you would consider this acceptance of 04 or not. But it is a little bit far beneath the level, so I'm kind of interested to see if Adam mentions these two at all as considering them as acceptance of 04 or not. So here's the second entry right there. Actually, it goes on to dip a little bit lower. Sorry, I was distracted. So yeah, tricky thing with this one was stop location for sure. The full-on structural stop is somewhere down at beneath 79 plus whatever margin you want to give it. Maybe it's 76. So that's a pretty large stop, 30-point stop almost. But yeah, right there, lifting up through. So I took a level-to-level move and I did a small add in this separate account here when we came back up through. Quite like that one. And then now we're having the third dip. About to get another dip off of the 11 level. So completing 3 swings of type 1 acceptance on the 6911. So if you hadn't gotten in at 04, there'll be a nice entry up here too. Let's get rid of all this stuff. And that was that really. 100 times just to finish it off. And get up to the next major, which was the bear case line at 69.23. I never really looked back. Alright guys, that's it for this one.